I don't have a good idea of how to start this one. Being at the first one, we have no practice in starting podcasts. So, how should we start?
Well, last time you just complained about something.
Right.
That's generally how most of our conversations start.
But perhaps this one won't be, because this is Phon Voyage, our podcast. I am Michael. This is my co-host, David. Do you want to say anything after that or just nod?
I was looking at my notes. Today's focus. We are
And the
speaking
focus of
about
every episode will be...
an album.
Yes.
Yes. This is our first one, so we should give the context.
I think so.
Yes. One album each episode. 1 hour. If we go over... we'll try.
Mm-hmm.
Today's album is called Sometimes I Might Be Introvert by Little Simz. A little bit of context. Little Simz is a British rapper born in London. Real name Simbiato Ajikawa. This album, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, which is an acronym for Simbi, which is her abbreviation of her real name.
Do you know when I realized that?
When?
After I suggested it to you like a week ago, I realized, oh, wow, sometimes S-I-M-B-I. Wow. Because I listened to this album for like a year without knowing that.
Yeah, it is an acronym for a name, essentially. And I think that speaks to kind of what the album's about.
Mm-hmm.
Released in 2021. And
September 2021.
Yes, Little Simz does have a newer album since this came out. And it just shows you how, with the times, Phon Voyage is and always will
So we're
be.
doing not the recent one.
Well,
but semi-recent.
it is
In
quite
the last 3 years, so, you know.
So we'll try to keep it recent.
Very, well, very semi-recent.
Very semi-recent. There are rules, by the way. We are only allowed to start listening and preparing after each podcast. So for the next one, we can only start listening after we finish today.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition, we can't speak to each other about it,
Yes.
which is really frustrating.
What do
Especially
you
when
mean,
you live
David?
together.
It's totally fine. I haven't heard you complain ever about this.
Me complaining?
Never.
Never.
And
So-
it would have been fine had we not made 3 delays. To
Yes, I wonder
this
what
filming.
caused those delays.
I blame me, you, and her. All 3 of us.
In order.
It's all equal blame. All equal blame, David. We're a team.
So yeah, that was our first ever intro.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it a solid 4 out of 10.
I'd agree. Room for improvement, but the basics are there.
Yes,
The
no, we got
basics
it
are
done. I was very impressed. Was my first thought after listening to it. I thought this album, after the first kind of passive listen, this is
This is a very good album.
yeah. And there was something when you're listening to it for the first time, it's something that feels a bit special. And so it got me a bit excited, and as you know, I've listened to it quite a bit over the last
Quite a
few
bit.
weeks.
If you were to put a accurate guess.
Accurate guess on how many times the full album start to finish.
Yeah.
20 to 25.
20 to 25.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's the thing. That's for me, if I'm listening to one album and I want to, then that's fairly normal. And it's been 3 weeks now, so...
1 listen a day. There you go. So I think we should start with the very first clip we have of 00 of the opening song, Introvert. So if we could take a listen to that. That is, in my opinion, a very interesting way to open a hip-hop album. Because if you say this album it's a hip hop album. There's no denying that. But that intro, a big orchestra, those like marching drums, that is not common at all, from my experience.
Yeah, the production here, they definitely try to incorporate that the kind of differing styles there. I think the main thing here is it's very thematic. It's a marching drum.
Very cinematic as well.
Yes, also very cinematic. I will say though, we'll talk about it a bit later. For me, I kind of lost the cinematic feel. It gave me much more of a live theater feel, especially later on in the album, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. But yeah, so the marching drums, it introduces this theme, and then we'll hear later on in the song like the shouts of war, 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 and kind of this beginning of a conflict kind of theme that comes out of it. And that's kind of the way the production was kind of headed. They wanted to have a hip hop album and then use these orchestral sections as to kind of to create the theme essentially.
So this song, I feel it's a great opener, even from that what we just heard. It sets the tone because after that, after the massive orchestra intro, it does tune it down, bring everything down a bit. So and then with her lyrics and her rap that comes in, it's then just much more stripped back, which like you said, the conflict is almost between the large arrangement around that's everything that's happening and then her in the middle.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. And then I think just this is a pretty great song.
Yeah, what you mentioned there about how they strip it back, they do it a lot in the album. And it's very difficult to pull off, to have these kind of grandiose sounds and then strip it back so that you can give more focus to the vocals. And they do it very interestingly as well, as they don't hold back. If they have an idea, they'll go with it. And they do a great job with this song as well. And even later on, after the verses have ended, they move into an instrumental kind of section. I think if we can play the third music clip there. Yeah, so that's I think the beginning, but also the change that happens in the instrumental section. And they're not afraid to go deeper into that stuff. They will take the idea and run with it, and they'll just let it go. They won't think, okay, no, keep the song a bit shorter, maybe thinking of the radio edits in the back of their minds. They're just going with, this is where we're moving.
This is, all the songs on the album, I think, to the detriment of one song, is they're not thinking about any post-editing. It's always all about this piece. It's like you say, it goes where it needs to go. And what I really like is that we said the strings at the start. It's so, I mentioned cinematic earlier. It's almost like James Bond, those like 60s, but mixing it with the like hip hop drum pattern of, and I think that like really like to marry those two ideas is just like a masterpiece in production.
Yes. It's very difficult. I think I want to talk about that a bit later as well in a different song. I want to move on to the lyrics because this is obviously how Sims starts the album. So she's trying to give the basis for what she's going to speak about. So I've got things here like a lot of reflection, and this is, I think, the introspection of this album is throughout. Almost every song there'll be some kind of introspection. A lot of then also speaking about the world as a whole and how it affects. I don't want to say black women right now because she's going to talk more on that later.
The very next song, perhaps.
What? Is a song called "Woman" on this album? I thought so. But it's about the fight. It's about fighting for what you believe in and also having faith. And that's probably the third main theme of the album, of just relying on faith in terms of carrying on in the fight. It's something that gets mentioned quite often.
Interesting. I wouldn't say there's faith. I would definitely say belief, but I would put it more as self-belief.
I think we can talk about it a bit later then, because I think it's a mixture. A lot of the times when Sims is doing the introspection, it comes across firstly as this kind of self-belief, but then she will pretty much always make reference to faith later on in the song. I'm not sure if I have any written down here. I know that even in the very last song, in the last verse, she even mentions it at the end. And when I say faith, yeah, I kind of don't want to narrow it down because she does mention different kinds of faith in the album as well. But yeah, so that is kind of where the lyrics head. I will like to say at the end of the song, we're also introduced to a different character. I don't know what to call the character. In my mind, I always called her like the hostess, but it's the first time I thought to myself of like this Alice in Wonderland feel to the album, because it feels like this I don't know, fairy or magical being that's guiding Sims through.
I definitely feel like she is the narrator. That is her role in this album. I think the actress's name is Emma Corrin.
Yes, from The Crown, I think. She plays Diana, I think.
Okay.
I think, can we play the last clip from Introvert? I think we get introduced to the narrator.
Alone, but not lonely. Your truth unveiled.
There's this one section at the very end of the narration. And I wanted to know if you picked up on what it was referencing. The lyrics go, your introversion led you here, intuition led you along the way, feelings kept you balanced.
I did not know if that was an allusion to something else.
I'm really glad you're saying that, because that is a reference to Little Sims' Myers-Briggs personality type. And I have been so excited to ask you about that because I know your feelings
on Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs.
I have. Well, I don't have many feelings. I have one feeling on Myers-Briggs that it's something that I don't want to say on camera.
I was very excited because our producer knows a lot about these personality types, and my co-host does not have any respect for them. And I found it very interesting because this album that he suggested, the lyrics are very clearly inspired partly by these personality types, to the point where it's referenced blatantly in the first song. So yeah, it's just for those who are watching who know about this stuff, it's an INFP personality type. If you do want to know more about that, you'll be able to engage with us after the show, and I'm sure our producer will love to talk about it at length. So yeah, I think the main thing about this that should be pointed out is the introverted part of her personality type, and clearly this is part of her journey of self-discovery that she mentions throughout the album.
So the second song, called Woman, which is, I think, what it does well is we spoke about how Introvert is so big, it's anthemic, and Woman is much more low-key. It's just a song that you can kind of vibe to, and you can just get into the groove.
Yes.
So, and I really like that kind of balance of, I think it would be too much to have the whole orchestra all the time.
Yes.
And it really works, like pulling things back, just having the bass and the kick and the drum kit, and just letting that just groove.
For me, it reminded me of the song called Poetry by Erykah Badu and the RH Factor. It's not to be spoken about in depth here, but for anybody who wants to Google it, it's mainly because it reminds me of this kind of old school, very like soul but groovy, but also not afraid to be jazzy with it. You know, they don't hold back on some of the more complex harmonies, that kind of thing. They just kind of play the beat and then they kind of let it loose as a musician, essentially. That's kind of how I felt about the song. It gave me that reminder. And one of maybe the songs themselves will sound quite different, but the feel is there. And in terms of the lyrics here, Woman is about different women of different ethnicities and celebrating that.
Well, different ethnicities, but a focus on African ethnicities, please.
So I would actually say it's not African, but women of color. With reference to Indian and Caribbean ethnicities as well.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I think it was largely the most common ethnicities of women of color in London. I think that's kind of where it was.
It's definitely shaped by her experiences in London. The whole album is. Yeah.
It's a very celebratory song. It's basically about talking about different kinds of women that she's come across in her life and the way that they carry themselves and how they live through their situation. And I think it's the first sign of celebration in the album, which kind of gets picked up again later. And I like the mix of it as well with this kind of groovy style, because it's a very serious message, but it's set in this kind of laid back, groove focused song. That she didn't have to go into an Introvert style song where it's all grandiose to say that, yay, women of color. She's kind of just laid back saying, yeah, obviously women of color, And that's like the kind of the feel that I got from it.
Yeah. Whoopsie. Disaster. Technical difficulties. Well,
hey, we're back without the artwork that our producer spent so much time on. I have to say, it makes sense. The moment you have two men speaking about women's issues, that everything turns
falls
into
apart.
a disaster.
Cleo Sol does the hook.
Yes.
She has a beautiful voice. Super good.
It's definitely... I don't think it's the only album where Sims works with Cleo Sol, and it's almost like a cornerstone of her music at this point.
So, funny you should say that. So, the producer on this album is a guy called Inflow.
Yeah.
And he and Cleo Sol are two of the known members of a collective artistic group called Salt.
Yes.
And Sims has contributed to that we can't hear anymore because they took that album down. But that's just they are frequent collaborators.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, when I did read about Salt, I think they released something stupid, like 5 albums at once.
Yeah, in November last year. Yeah.
November last year. Oh, is this the one you were speaking to me about last year?
No, that was King Gizzard. Oh. Very different band.
But they also released 5 albums in a month or something.
I mean, I think it's just the... we're getting a bit sidetracked about Salt here, but I think their feeling is just... It's about the music, not about the personalities of anyone. That's why there are only 2 people who are confirmed to be a part of the group, even though there are far more people that actually work there. They're just like, we make this music, and if we're happy with it, we can release it. There's no expectations they deal with. They just put it out. So, yeah.
But I think it's nice that we got sidetracked on it because Inflow produced every song, yeah? There were a little bit of collaboration on 2 or 3 of them, but it's as much an Inflow album as a Little Sims album, probably. There's a lot of things in here which are very production-driven. And when I saw...
I absolutely agree in terms of the production, but it's certainly the message of the album and all the lyrics are about Sims. And I think he does brilliantly in his production to complement the message rather than overtake it.
Yes. From what I read, it was also very much collaborative, that Inflow would have production in mind, and then it's just tell Sims, talk about this. And then she would write the lyrics based on this theme, and then it would work well together. Yeah, it's very, very collaborative in the way that it was produced. So yeah, I Rose here with 2 worlds apart. We've kind of moved into a more traditional hip-hop sound, with like the repeating beep and the sampling dub on top.
Sure, it is more traditional, but like you said with Women, it samples a Smokey Robinson song from the 60s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is common in hip-hop, but she doesn't like try and change the vibe at all. They just bring it in and keep on the laid back feel.
Yes.
Just very comfortable, which is odd. The lyrics of the song are a bit about being a conflict in 2 places, but I always felt like the production of the song is very. I wouldn't say it's happy, but it seems to be very like comfortable where it is. What do you think?
So you mentioned the lyrics about conflict in two places.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a bit of context to that. This is the song I think that references Kendrick Lamar, like they were driving the car listening to Kendrick. So part of this is also a bit of a reference, from what I understand. So I want to mention this specifically because we're in South Africa. So Little Sims actually came here during the Fees Must Fall protests
Oh,
and
really?
recorded a song at UCT.
No way.
Remember when I said we should do this episode and Bremner pulled me?
That's what you said. I had no idea.
Yeah, so that's why I think part of this is that kind of messaging of that it's the same struggle but being on other sides of the world. And it's very much for me the kind of rebellious feel of the album did give a very student protest feel to it. Like not in necessarily the sounds, but in the message, you know? And I think that's kind of where it goes with this. And in terms of the traditional hip hop, I think it's got to do with that's what we were listening to during these protests, you know? We're listening to that kind of
Did she have you in mind while writing the song? The UCT student.
I have to say though, when I watched the music video that Sims released, it's actually for any UCT student who was there during the protest, it's kind of weird to watch because you'll see all of the faces and the people who were there at the front of the protest that you'll recognize, you know, from Twitter and from all of the what are they called, the SRC emails. It's all the same people, and it genuinely felt like being in 2016 again. It was weird. It was very weird, especially now to kind of reconcile that with this British artist singing about her struggles. And I think that's kind of the message there. Yeah, I remember initially thinking it was a breakup song. It was like my first passive listen. I'm not
sure if it's this song, but I think definitely she feels, in my mind, the two worlds represent partially her being in the world of the music industry and all the kind of glamour and working on songs and production and playing live events, and also then with her family and her like local community, and those two things that she wants them to be the same, but they don't always work out that way.
Yeah.
That applying your time in one area means you're not doing it in the other, and then that deteriorates. So that's, in my mind, those are the two worlds.
Yeah, and gets referenced again later. It's very much just, I think the first few songs of the album are very much starting to set up the themes. And these are what we're going to be talking about during the album. Next up, though, we move on to, I think this is a single from the album.
I don't know what any of the singles were. To me, it didn't matter. I didn't listen to this album thinking, going into looking for big songs. And there's never a part in the album where I feel like, wow, this song has a very different tone to the rest. Was it a radio play? Like I said earlier, it's all.
We'll come back to that.
Okay, yeah.
But I do want to speak about I Love You, I Hate You. This is the song that I was mentioning when I said that Inflow would have production ready and then tell Sims to speak about it. So he told Sims specifically to rap about her father. And that is like the context. I compared in my mind to the song Daddy Issues by Kendrick Lamar. That's very much like that same theme of, you know, how did my father affect me? And I think it's a really, really well composed song with this refrain of I love you, I hate you, but then also the contrast in the lyrics. Sims will say a good thing, then a bad thing, then a good thing, then a bad thing. And it really makes the rap a lot punchier in a way, and like it kind of hits you each time.
Well, I think it really contributes to it feeling realistic. It doesn't feel like she's exaggerating anything for dramatic effect. These feel like her real feelings, the feelings she struggles with, that she doesn't like this guy, but also there's things that, you know, she feels like she does owe him for, like, you're my dad. There's something there, but she does feel like there is some like anger towards him, but those things don't settle out to one easy answer. You have to deal with both of them. So I think after, I wouldn't say after the last couple of songs, but it does go a lot more like introspective. This song, it's very personal, in a way that once before, like I guess Two Worlds Apart and Introvert were a little bit, but this is something that is, I don't know, maybe people will relate to it. I can't myself, but it feels like very specific song. So I'm surprised it's a single because it does feel incredibly personal.
Yeah. In terms of the fact that it's more personal than the others, to go back to the instrumentation of the song, we come back in with the orchestral music of this one. And I do want to play the clips after I say this, but I think that is the space that Sims uses in the album to get more personal. The moment the instrumentation or the dreamier production comes out, she starts to actually speak more about her personal introspection and her journey. Mm-hmm. Can we just play both clips for I Love You, I Hate You? We can just chat about what happens in the two of them.
But right now, always. Or is you in understanding, knowing my words will connect? I keep you in my prayers, cause life is short as we know. Every mistake you make should contribute to your growth. What you choose to avoid will probably come in your dreams. I'm not forgiven for you, man, I'm forgiven for me. And sometimes...
Yeah, so the first one there is from what I was referencing there about using the lyrics with the instrumentation to kind of go in the back and forth of the good and the bad parts of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And then we also have the backing strings. Yeah. Which aren't that...
I made a note of here. I thought they were so melodramatic. They are so... There's the way they are just like so slow, and they're playing that like... I don't know, what do you call the kind of chord progression? They're just like...
I wouldn't have a name for it in this instance. But it's very much just set up to be a sad sound to it. It's not saying much more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely, I feel like that's why I say melodramatic. This is a sad piece. Yes. But, and the part of that is, you know, she's not happy that she's dealing with these issues. But, and in the next clip, she says, I'm not forgiven for you, I'm forgiven for me. It's part of not having to deal with it, but it's something she's doing for herself, not because of him.
But personally, I love the build up to that climax. I think it's really powerful, and I like the fact that they are a bit melodramatic with it, because a song with this kind of message, a lot of people will have their own personal journey, right? And a lot of people won't be able to relate to other people's journeys in a similar context. But for you, it's always going to feel really impactful. It's always going to be very important. There's no way you go through a journey like this where it doesn't really profoundly impact you. And when you speak about it in this context, then you need to be like, this is a big deal. Me forgiving my father in this context, I need to shout it out with like this big production, because it's a massive deal to me. But there's a lot to say on this album.
There is a lot to say about the album.
We will have a break at the halfway point, and then after that we can decide if we need to speed it up a bit.
Breaking it like with the 1/3 point.
No, after speed.
I see you as the middle of the album.
Oh well.
Yeah. But that song, I don't have a lot to talk about. This Little Q Part 1. It's kind of an interlude. It is just a bit of a break from the drama of the last song. That was quite heavy. This is much more lighter in tone.
Not at all. What?
I mean, not the lyrics or the voiceover from Q, who's her cousin.
You're just talking about the instrumentational.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to play the first clip there for Little Q?
Very happy lyrics in that bit. My sun will shine.
It's not, I wouldn't call it happy at all. Let's maybe go back to there's two parts to this. There's Little Q Part 1, Little Q Part 2. So Little Q Part 1 just plays the theme, and without the lyrics, and then goes into Little Q, who I believe is Sims' cousin, praying. And he just says a prayer, and then we move on to Little Q Part 2, where Sims tells Little Q's story from his perspective. So, firstly, the song lyrics are not happy at all. It's a story of a very difficult life.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where I go back to what I said at the start about faith, because that is the theme of the two songs, and with what they're singing about in the happy lyrics. It sounds happy because it's a message of faith. It's a message of saying that, hey, this is what you went through in your life, and it was horrible, but have faith that everything is going to be okay. I wouldn't call it happy for that reason, though. It's a different kind. It's hope. There is happiness to have in hope, but it's not. You're not singing happily about it. I think it's a really cool song to include. It reminded me a lot of some of other rappers using these stories to kind of.
Were you trying not to say Kendrick Lamar there?
I was trying to not say Kendrick Lamar because it reminded me a lot of. Which song is it? Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst?
Any Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah, most of Good Kid, Mad City. But I think specifically in Sing About Me, Kendrick takes turns in each verse, singing from the perspective of somebody else that their life story and something that he affected. And Little Q is now the character that Sims is speaking. I think it's very useful because it's an introspective album, but you're taking the time to now speak about somebody else, and it kind of adds more. If you think about this from the cinematic or the theater Wonderland perspective, it adds more to like the overall narrative of what's happening around Sims, which I think is very useful.
Just on I mentioned earlier that I thought there was one part in the album where I was like, why didn't they edit it down? I don't know why these are two different tracks.
I agree. It doesn't make sense.
They just fade out and then come back in with the same beat. So I'm like, why?
The only thing I can think of is that we go from Little Q's actual words to Sims singing from his perspective. But I personally thought it should just be one song.
Yeah.
And I think when we last, in our episode 0, we did an album called Remember That You Will Die. If anybody wants to Google that, it's by Polyphia. And the one song we mentioned was like an interlude. And I said how I always appreciate a good interlude. But Polyphia didn't really take that route. They didn't really have any interludes. They just had songs going through. I think there are 5 interludes in this album.
I was going to say, wasn't Little Q Part 1 also an interlude?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of interludes.
There are many interludes.
I do love it. I do like having a lot of interludes.
I like that they're there. I just don't have a lot to say about a lot of them. Like this one, I think it's the first half is I have written down pleasant but not interesting. Then we get into the conversation between. I think this is where we have the conversation between Sims and the narrator, which is very self-reflective.
Yes, but this is the beginning of the hero's journey. It's one of the most fun songs to listen to.
I can't listen to this song on its own.
I could, 100%. Maybe we just play the first clip there. We can start talking about.
Well, I don't have any clips from this one, so it's all you.
Take your time. Inhale, exhale, breathe. Do you want 15 years or 15 minutes?
Yeah, so I included those 2 clips there. Firstly, as you mentioned, the narrator comes back now. And it does become a conversation. Sims starts kind of just speaking about her anxieties and her feelings, just being very open to respond to what the narrator is kind of warning her. And then throughout the song, we also have these children kind of shouting in the background, sometimes randomly, but also other times shouting at Sims, like telling her things like, you can do it, and kind of giving her some encouragement. And that's kind of what the song talks about. And then as we heard there, especially in the second clip, this is mainly where I think the theater feel really comes in. It very much has this feel of an actor on a stage going through a journey, and then extras pop out at the back and they're saying, you can do it. And then having like they use 808s in the song, I think, but they have this like timpani giving the doom, 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 and the bass drum coming in sometimes. And it gives this feeling of like this magical place, the Wonderland feel that we spoke about earlier on. I really enjoy this. For me, I can listen to these interludes on their own simply because of the fact that on their own they're interesting. They're
They are
not
interesting, but how many times can you have the rapper that came to tea on repeat?
the rapper that can
On
okay.
repeat.
We'll have to
David.
talk about that later.
Oh, yeah, you
We'll
can't have
talk
that
about
on repeat.
later. Oh my goodness, you're gonna trigger me later, aren't you? Oh my word. Okay, well, we can move on to the next one then, because I'm very interested to hear, based on what you said about this interlude, what you're gonna say about the next song.
So, Speed is the next song, and it is we go from the theatrical Wonderland instrumentation to a very, I don't want to say a harder beat, but a much more typical hip-hop beat. And the lyrics, people want to put me in a box. But I think it is a bit like the song is about her overcoming self-doubt, and people want to tell her what she is, which isn't true. But she can do that, and she's proving that on this song, that she is a very competent rapper.
Yeah.
She is very good. So that is what I think about this song.
So that's the thing. The lyrics, I think, I agree with you completely. For me, we have to talk about the actual production of the song, because I really hate this song.
Oh, really?
I hate this song.
No, I like this song.
I have to say this because there's the main beat, and there's a beat that comes in later. I'm pretty sure you added a clip of that. So
What I like about this, you can continue, but I made notes about the clips of production.
So I'm just going to start off by talking about the beat, and I really hate this beat. And I have to say this because I couldn't shake it. You can even check my notes here. I wanted to go back after the 10th or 15th listen, go through the lyrics properly and see, am I missing something? And I'm not missing something. This bass line sounds like a group of 14-year-old music students are discovering a synth for the first time. And I say that with so much confidence because I'm fairly certain that I was that 14-year-old music student, and I've written this bass line. I can't take the song seriously. And after you speak, I'm going to tell you the second reason why I can't take it seriously. So just tell me what you want to say about that clip.
So can we go to the clips, the clip at 1 minute and then the clip at 2:20 of Speed. So
I got 'em singing.
So I think that's pretty cool, doing it on the synth and then doing it on the strings. The strings then directly lead into the strings on the next song.
Yes.
But we'll keep it on Speed for now. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool beat. I think the instrumentation works.
I don't.
I like it.
Can I just, now that we've listened to that,
Yeah.
the first clip there when they play that melody on the synth,
Yeah.
and this is the part where we have a rule on this show where I need a knick-knack.
Partially made up of. There we go.
This
Does
thing.
that show up on camera? No.
Is it not on camera? There we
It's
go.
way too small.
It's way too small. It doesn't matter. This is our stupid notes from social media jar.
From Reddit,
So-
from Twitter, someone else Anthony Fantano, any like other thing, you're like, this person said this, and I'm gonna say it now.
Yes.
That is what this
So
jar is.
nobody said this, but sometime last year there was a Reddit post where this guy posted about how for the last 2 years in his relationship with his girlfriend, every time they had sex, he played the same song. And only after 2 years did his girlfriend finally tell him that she hated the song. And it became a very big meme and went viral. It was all over all the social media platforms. And that melody reminds me of
Reminds
that.
you of Seabat by Hudson Mohawk.
It is the same stupid sound. And I can't take the song seriously for those two reasons. The 14-year-old music student writing the synth bass line and the Reddit sex song playing as the main melody. I can't do it.
I'm offended that you take all of Hudson Mohawk and classify him as the Reddit sex song.
I still don't know the name of the artist who did that song. I don't care. It's the Reddit sex song.
I understand why you see similarities in the tone. It certainly doesn't grate on my ears the same way the other one does. The same way that the song is, for anyone that doesn't know, Seabat by Hudson Mohawk. It doesn't grate on me like that. I think it's pretty cool. Like, it is rough, and it's meant to be, but I like that.
I just don't like it. For me, I don't even mind the song that much. For me, the reason why I hate it so much is because it doesn't deserve to be in this album.
What?
It doesn't. I don't think that the production of this song is on the same as the same quality as the rest of the album.
Just because there's no cellos doesn't mean it's bad.
No, there are other songs in this album. And the thing is, when I first listened to it, there were about 3 or 4 songs where I felt this way. And then the more I listened to it, the other ones I listened to more and I appreciated more. This one, I couldn't. I just couldn't. And that's why I know. Like, the other ones that don't have orchestration behind it, they still work really well and they're good songs. Whereas this one just doesn't work.
Well, that's just your opinion, man. Producer is telling us to stop. They're taking a time out. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. No, it's our break.
Scheduled break.
Yes, it's in your contract, remember?
Oh, is
You
it?
went into your trailer and everything and complained
I
about a
see.
bunch of stuff before coming back. Yeah.
That's nice. Nice to have a break that we're going to edit out. Where were we? Standing
Speaking about
ovation.
Standing ovation.
Bang.
I wrote down banger of the album.
It
I
is.
did change my mind on that because I changed
I know you're
it
going to
to-
say point and kill, but it's not.
I
Standing
changed it to
ovation.
the rapper that came to tea. But yes, it is definitely up there. Once again, we're bringing back the grandiose orchestral instrumentation.
Yeah. That makes sense for a song that sounds like a f***ing victory lap. Oh, I just swore there. Damn.
We'll edit that
Edit
one
that out. Put a bleep there. That's what we're going to do.
It's not really a victory lap.
It is. Saying I
not-
need a standing ovation because I've done all this and I'm good at it and I've
No,
overcome these
no.
difficulties.
It's a bit more humble than that because she's not just saying I deserve a standing ovation. What she's saying is that actually I'm realizing, wait a minute, why can't I celebrate myself? She's saying that, hey, look how far I've come. Look what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I sit back and say, yeah? And it's more of a realization of she wasn't doing that before. She wasn't celebrating how far she's come and what she's achieved.
Well, the song is doing it now.
But then she also stops and says, but then I also realized I didn't get you on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the actual climax of the song was when they strip back all of the instrumentation, all this grandiose like pomp and circumstance, and just go straight for the lyrics and say, what about all of these people, these
A
members of my
message
community?
about her community and
Yeah.
people she admires and looks up to.
and that they should be celebrated.
They should be celebrated too, but she's definitely, keeping... I don't want to say keeping the focus on herself, but it is a song about about her, saying I need a standing ovation, and that's what like I don't want to repeating myself. She deserves it. She gets it. It's a banger.
We do have a couple of clips from this one.
Yes.
And I definitely want to play them.
Yeah.
So do you have any notes on a specific one?
I only made one, which is timestamp 117 around there.
So maybe just play all three of them, and then we can go.
Why the desperate need for an applause? I'll wait. Is she the goal here when it's safe to assume? Everybody panic when I my nigga. Scripts to read, my nigga. Double life living overseas, my nigga. Shit, left home for it. Jasmine just had a daughter, man. What is it I'm meant to be? I think I need a standing ovation. Over 10 years in the game, I'm impatient. God has always told me to.
Yeah, bassline.
Is it double bass? Is it upright bass? I think so.
It doesn't sound like an upright playing. I think it's a P bass that
Could be.
just sounds like, because the way it's played just doesn't sound like an upright.
At the end of the day, the bass is awesome.
Yeah,
in this
bass
song.
is great.
The mixture of the drum and bass is kind of what really gives it the edge, on top of the orchestration. And I think in that clip, we hear the brass on top with the main theme. Da-da-da-ba-ba. That's kind of what drives the song, that mixture. I think the second clip
is the one I made, where it slows down a bit and then comes back in with the build up, which I just think instantly brings the hype back to levels. So we can hear that.
My nigga. Scripts to read, my nigga. Double life living overseas, my nigga. Shit, left home for it. Jasmine just had a daughter, man. She's so gorgeous.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned this earlier on. We were speaking about how they change between the orchestral sounds and then go into the more hip hop beats and the kind of the stripped away stuff. In this case, what they're doing is they're going from these more introspective verses, and then they come back in with a strong beat in the main theme.
Just bring that drum beat. 1, 2, 3.
But the way that it's done it's expert.
Yeah.
It is expertly done, and it's a treat to listen to. It's genuinely awesome.
But then after this song, it's quite different to go into I See You, which is, it's a nice song. It's just a chill song. More, it's a kind of, I guess you could call it a love song about someone specifically.
I wrote down it sounded like a love song. I also wrote down it's a Moonchild-esque sound. I'm not sure if you've listened to Moonchild before.
I don't know that reference.
No, so it's a band. Okay, so
Same thing.
Listening, you can check out Moonchild. For me, this just sounded like it was off their album. One of the things about Moonchild is that they haven't changed much over the years. They've got a very consistent sound to the point where it got a bit boring in recent years. But it's very consistent, and it sounds a lot like this one. If anybody is a Moonchild fan, check this one out. I See You.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure about Moonchild, but this song brings back Clear Soul.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
She's not credited on this one as a featured artist, but I'm not sure if she's credited as a vocalist.
It might also be his song. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, so this is the midpoint of the album, which it's not like there's a first half and a back half. The back half is definitely different, but it's not like there's a hard point of mirrored reflection between we're done with part 1 now, moving on to part 2. It's kind of just, I think, centering it around herself again. Like this is another personal song, not in the kind of way that some of the others were about personal struggles, but this is about personal feelings.
I would like to speak about that though, because my biggest criticism of the album as a whole is it has 5 interludes, right? It has this orchestral style music that it brings in every few songs to kind of say, hey, this part we're speaking about a story essentially. But I felt that they kind of dropped the narrative aspect. Not drop it, but they dropped the ball a bit. I think that the narrative is good, but I think I was just waiting for the rest of it, in a way.
In a way, standing ovation is the climax of the narrative story,
Yes.
which is and that is before the halfway mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, I think that was my biggest criticism, is that for me I felt this song, this album, could have been a bit longer. And I'm not saying much longer, but the narrative itself could have been explored as 1 or 2 more songs, and they could have filled it out with songs that were not speed, for example, and actually had like contributions towards the narrative.
I wouldn't say
It's a weird one because I love what they've done, but something about it for me was just lacking. And it's just more from an obvious narrative perspective. You know, because a lot of the narrative that they use in this album isn't meant to be explicit.
I wouldn't say it could be longer, but maybe it could be a double album where you made one side a lot more focused with the narration, and the other side, the other songs. Like,
I'm not a big fan of that.
well, then I don't know what you want, because I don't think.
If you think about it, she's released an album since this one's come out.
Yes.
For me, I've listened to that one, and I don't want to speak about it in depth, but
We can touch on the end, but this is about sometimes it might be introvert. Don't sidetrack us, David.
the
Don't
point being
sidetrack
that
us.
some of the songs that she's used there could have been included in this album, for example, and she could have delayed the release this prior year, and then added more to the narrative. For me, I think that was the potential in this album, which they didn't fully capture. They got a lot of the way there, because at the end of the day, it's an amazing album. But that's why it's probably my only real criticism.
But now we come to the rapper that came to tea, which you apparently can listen on repeat all day. You could just
song is amazing.
let it go.
This song is great. It is another interlude, and
Yeah.
I do have a thing for interludes. So yeah, I just think that it's like the best actual composition. That's why I enjoy it so much. Obviously, the first part of the song is.
I'm not sure how many double takes I can do to that. The best composition on the album. I think this song is the best composition. You're insane. Why am I making a podcast with you?
What do you dislike about the song?
I don't necessarily dislike it. I just think it is an interlude. It's between two songs that have strong ideas going in. This song has a little bit of that. It has, with the narration, there's the references the Tiger That Came to Tea, which is a children's book, which is, I'm not sure if you heard, it's very popular in the UK, that book.
I don't know the reference, but
Yeah, so it's a very popular children's book where a tiger comes to tea and they just have a kind of tea party with the tiger. But yeah, so then there's questions with the narrator, and there aren't necessarily answers to those questions that are posed, which is partially these are questions that there are no easy answers to, that you have to let them be questions and just acknowledge that you have to be thinking about these things, conscious of them, but you don't need to solve them.
So maybe we should play some of the clips there.
I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it, David. I don't see
You also enjoyed speed, so I don't really consider your opinion is very useful.
I'm sure it will be fine. However, the extroverts like to be entertained, and I was told you don't talk much. A question, if I may. What's a girl like you want in a place like this? I'm sure it will be fine. However, the extroverts like to be entertained, and I was told you don't talk much. A question, if I may. What's a girl like you want in a place like this?
Yeah.
Do you have the willingness to do the same? Better yet, what's the price that's worth your freedom?
What's the price that's worth your freedom? When there's no one left to hear your sweetheart.
It works so well in the album. I think this is the first time that we have this orchestral composition, now the musical theatre, and Alice in Wonderland, the reference that you mentioned, where we just don't include any of the hip hop, right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do that, to put it in the middle of an album. Just like, here's a song that just doesn't do what I usually do. And they do it amazingly, and it's also, it sticks to the theme so well. You know, it's not like they just, okay, let's just put in a Disney musical theme and then just like have this narrator talking to us in a posh accent. It fits so well with what's actually happening in the album. Like, in terms of the introspection, this idea of coming to tea and a hostess like welcoming you and asking you questions and you're feeling anxious, like, I don't know what to say. And then like the orchestration later on that with the choir coming in, and then it's like pulling you in two directions. It's the one time in the album where I feel like I'm in the story. I am a part of this journey, and does the best job of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it ties into back to the rest of the theme of like self-confidence. The last lines we heard, like, it doesn't matter where you are, you can still reach the stars. Yeah, about being confident. Even though you might be introverted and it's difficult to show that, you can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just don't think it's all too special.
Like, the point is, you can be an introvert and still start a podcast, and it can go viral. You know.
Yeah.
That's what the song's about.
But if you didn't like Speed and you liked that this wasn't hip hop, what do you think of Rolling Stone?
So this is the thing. That's a great thing to speak about now, because I mentioned when I was speaking about Speed, it wasn't the only song where my initial thought was, yeah. Rolling Stone was the other one where initially I thought, yeah, does this work? And after listening to it enough, I think 100%. I love Rolling Stone.
You love Rolling Stone. That is very odd to me. Because I like the first half. The first half, very hip hop, very UK grime. It's super good. And then we switched to a trap beat, and I just like can't stand that half bit of the song.
That was my first thought, especially now after this rapper that came to tea. It's a very big change, and my initial thought, like, one of the things I thought, like, it's a bit, it's a very simple song. The reason why I realized I liked it after a few listens, it's hard, like, it hits hard, you know. It just comes in with this trap beat, and it's also now the lyrics kind of change, right? And it's more like aggressive in a way. And also it has my favorite like vocal section of the album. And I think, do we have a clip there of Rolling Stone? I think that's my clip.
I didn't put any clips of Rolling Stone, so yep.
Wind, yeah. Can't believe it's in me here, that's had you listening. Wow, fuck that bitch for now, you didn't know she had a twin, yeah. I've been in my zone.
Yeah, so this is my favorite vocal work by Sims. One of my first actual criticisms when my first few listens was she's a bit monotonous with her style. And then more I listened to it, it's like, okay, no, she's not, right? And this for me is like the epitome of her really experimenting with like her vocal. And I think I read a quote from her where she does say like, yeah, she really wanted to get out there and show the other side of herself. And she even raps about it, saying that she has a twin.
Yeah.
You know? And then the way that they work with the vocals, by having the effects on top of it, I love it. I think it just has this real...
Talk about, you said earlier the amateur vocals, you're just 15 minutes you could do it. That's how I feel about a little bit of the effects. Just like, yeah, just put an effect on it. Oh, it sounds so different. Ooh, look at this.
The thing is, she's only doing it because she's now having an alter ego come out. Like, there's a thematic reason for it. And I agree with you, though. That was my first reaction to the song was, this seems a bit easy and lazy. Yeah. Right? But sometimes easy is important. Sometimes simple is important. And I think it actually achieves it quite well.
The song, so it's weird to go from very 2020s trap to a song which, in my opinion, feels very like kind of old school with the beats they use. Almost 80s like.
It's a more energetic one as well. Like it's...
I wouldn't say energetic, because the Rolling Stone definitely has bad energy, but believe that as well.
So a change in energy.
But yeah, Sure, we have a clip of Protect My Energy. I think it's very much like, I don't know, it's happier. It's a major song. So it's more like energetic in that sense, but not, I wouldn't say it's... Yeah, I don't know what to say now. Let's play a clip, because I'm running out of words.
Yeah, you can hear from the last clip to this one, complete change.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit like a Tom Misch. It's not as like chilled out as Tom Misch, but it has that. I think it was just the style of the effects and the synths and the drums and stuff. I don't know how to really describe it further than that.
Kind of see where you're coming from, but I don't necessarily. It wouldn't remind me of Tom Misch.
I do think that it's one of the weaker songs in the album.
I would say it is one of the has the weakest ties to the other songs. I don't think it's a weak song, but the only really thing is the lyrics, like Protect My Energy, like being an introvert, it's exhausting being around people. Sometimes I need to be alone, and that it can be like energizing to be alone. But that is, especially it's really only that, and the vocal the delivery is different to the rest of the song. So you're really only on theme. The rest of it doesn't really relate to what was happening in the other songs. Yeah. But I prefer this over Rapper That Came to Tea. I can put this on repeat.
I would get so annoyed if this on repeat.
Oh, what do you mean? Those synth chords, they're so cool.
Yeah, on repeat, so it made me like gouge my
We
eyes
can
out.
repeat it again. Play the clip. Repeat. What do you think people in the 80s did? They just had those sounds on repeat for a decade.
And people in the 80s are now depressed, going through their midlife crisis. This is why. But it moves on to yet another interlude.
Another interlude, yes.
But this is an actual interlude.
This
though.
is a very much an interlude. It's
A
like
lot of the
30
others
seconds
were
long.
just songs that had specific styles or narration. This is just an interlude. This is just a choral thing about one message, one line, never make promises. But it does lead us into the next two songs.
Which, I mean, it leads us chronologically. There's no real theme.
No other real theme.
Because Point and Kill, we go from just like we had a lot of different styles. Now we're very much in a West African Nigeria, like that area kind of beat. And I think the featured artist, I will attempt the pronunciation of the name.
Yes, it is.
Abongjega. Yeah.
It is also Sims going back to her roots in a way.
Yeah, I was going to say we've had a lot of feeling of like lyrics about community and her experience, and this is engaging with that, not in a way of being in London, but bringing in those outside influences from the UK to your specific culture.
I do. I like the story of this one. It wasn't originally meant to be in the album or anything. The artist just rocked up and was like, "Yo, Sims, let's do something." And then he just does the hook over the beat, and Sims loves it and turns it into the song. For me, I like that approach in an album of being open to that, especially with an album that's as narrative driven as this one. You now have this like, hey, this works, and then you put it in there. The difficulty of that is not the balance act of like, just because you like a song doesn't mean it belongs in the album. But I think the change into this going back to a root style, it fits well. It would have been much nicer if the interlude before this gave some kind of indication that we were going here. Just like anything at all.
I can see that. The next couple songs, this one and Fear No Man, which is another influenced by West African music, they are kind of tangentially related to the theme, but without the orchestral strings. they don't feel like they're tying into it.
Yes.
It's like we've had like you said earlier, everything that's related to that theme has had the strings and the orchestra going, and now without that, we feel a little bit lost. Like these two songs, I enjoy them.
Yes,
but
and they're good songs.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now we lead on to the end of the narrative in the garden.
Yes.
So previously we've had the narrators speak a lot with Sims in different contexts. Now the narrator's giving a lesson to Sims essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended with this choral section. I've written down here: haunting, melancholy, hopeful. Those like the three feelings I get from it. I love it. I love how they've used this to kind of end the narrative. I think it works well as an ending and does well to lead into the actual ending of the album. For me, this is why I keep going on about this narrative, is because before this we've had now Rolling Stone, Protect My Energy, Never Make Promises, Point and Kill, Fear No Man. Nothing happens in the narrative there.
Yeah.
We go from the rapper that came to tea to nothing happening in the narrative to the finale. And I think that there's just a missed opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is my clip that I've added there.
Yep.
Okay, I do want to play this. So that's the choral section that I was pointing out. It's beautiful. It's one of those things where just listening to that kind of music in any context, it's the thing about choral music in general. It just has this ability to be emotionally impactful just from the way it's done. So for me, I just like to say like that's just worth listening to on its own. And it does also bring us into the next song, which has this choir in the background. So we have this now kind of lead up in that respect. And it's almost like the end of the album, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely in the home stretch, and we go into How Did You Get Here, which I think is the most on the nose, like autobiographical song.
Yes.
About her all her experiences, learning how to rap, what she's gonna do. And yeah, it definitely feels like the album is coming to a close on this song. And there's another one after it, but this song could very much be the end.
So Sims herself actually said that.
Okay.
If you hear her speak about the final song on the album, she says that she could have easily ended the album on the previous song. And she uses this last song as like the epilogue almost.
Okay.
She didn't say the epilogue, but that's me saying that. But this is the end. This song, How Did You Get Here, is the end. And what we get afterwards in the final song, Misunderstood, is like a post-credits almost. I think it works well. I think it works really well.
I definitely think it works well. I think, how did we get here? We've had all the... we've had a lot of... Like, you used the word opulence earlier about strings, which I really think is true for a lot of the orchestration and even the... something like Protect My Energy, where everything is big and loud. This is a very more chilled song, and the focus is very much on her. And I think that really works.
The chilled instrumentation with the piano and quiet reminds me of the end of 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Why? That's not related to anything. It's reference to the album.
Okay.
Note to self at the end of that album. It has the same style. It has the choir in the background. I think there's a piano in there as well. And it's very much like, this is how we're going to end the album.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the same kind of style. And I agree. Like, get rid of the opulence. Let's just end it. Just me. Like, I'm gonna rap, This one is a bit weird to me. Just in terms of the lyrics.
I think it is just about, she's having to work out the two things of being like a famous singer and also having still family responsibilities to her, her family. That's how those work, You wouldn't do family responsibilities to your co-workers if you do, that's a toxic relationship. Yeah, but it's very, I don't know, it's very understated, like end to the album. I think it's so she ends with like I would like to call you sometimes and just chat about stuff.
Yeah, he's talking about his sister.
Yeah, but there's also I think the end of Two Worlds Apart has a voice note from from her cousin saying like, "You never call me."
No, I tried to call
Yeah.
it, but you don't pick up the phone.
So that's and that callback is part of it. Like, you know, I want to have all these. I want to be like present in your life and just like talk about all the things, but you know, sometimes I don't, and sometimes
I might be introvert.
Juicy.
Sometimes it's because I'm introverted and I don't want to talk to you right now. I just don't feel like I can't do that. Sometimes it's because I'm busy with the fame stuff.
Or there's also just because we're working with family, business gets in the way, and I don't get to actually be your sister. Yeah, I think the part for me that I found a bit like odd about it is that she's being honest here, but she's also being honest in a way where she's saying like she doesn't really have it all figured out. You know, at one point in the song, she just stops. She's like saying things. She's like kind of complaining, and then she just suddenly says, "Maybe I did overreact there, or I did." And she doesn't actually have it figured out. She doesn't really know. For her, it's just like a thing of she hates the fact that she has to deal with this, and that she doesn't know how to deal with it, and that things go wrong. People don't understand her, you know. And it's like I think it's nice because in a reflective, introspective album where she's figuring herself out, she gets to the end and she says that, hey, look, I actually have a long way to go still, and I'm just glad to be where I am now.
Yep.
And then we get to the end.
I agree. That is the end of Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. So, do you think this was a good suggestion? What do you think of the album? Are we going to we had a rating system.
We do have a rating
that I've
system.
forgotten.
It's on the Asada board.
But yeah, what do you think this was a good recommendation?
Yes, no, I love the fact that you recommended this. To be honest, I don't know how I didn't find it before. It's not a very unknown album, but it was really great actually being able to experience this. It's one of my favorites. It goes onto my list. It'll always be on my in my library. I don't think I'll ever get rid of this album. Yeah. And also, it's now introduced me to Little Sims in general, and I've listened to some of our other stuff as well.
For me, this is definitely a hard recommend to anyone watching. Just listen to this album. It's really good.
Yes.
Like you can find, like we've spoken about for like more than an hour, about different parts that we like. You will find something in this album that you like.
100%. It won't be speed.
Lyrics and performance.
Yes.
What do you think of lyrics and performance?
So lyrics and performance, I think it's a difficult one to. I think we have to first say, when it comes to a hip hop album, there's gonna be like there's a different like level, you know. So I shouldn't say hip hop. When you're a rapper, there's gonna be a bit of a higher bar. I'd put these lyrics at a solid 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, the lyrics and performance, the reason I didn't want to do either of these separately is because I think this more encapsulates the emotion that you feel through the lyrics and performance. You know, sometimes the lyrics can be really simple, but if it's performed well, whether that's the rap or singing, that can really affect that. For me, I would say, yeah, these are pretty good, really good. If we're going out of 10, which that's just a standard one, I'd also say 8. I would say this is an 8 out of 10 album on lyrics.
So after that, we had production, orchestration as the next category.
Yeah, for me, this is a probably at least a 9, maybe even 9.5, 10.
I think you know what I'm gonna say.
Are you gonna say a 10?
No, I'm gonna say 9, but should have been a 10.
Should have been a 10 without Protect My Energy.
No, it should have been a 10 if they didn't use Reddit as inspiration.
Yeah, I think it was excellently done. The use of orchestra, the mixing that with the traditional hip hop sounds. Yeah, it was really good production.
Look, it's made me want to check out more of Inflow's stuff and all of that.
Yep.
So, definitely. The next two categories I can't remember. I know the last one.
Or we can do some thinking. Cut this out.
Can we just stand by?
So the other categories we remembered. We
Yes.
totally didn't just cheat and look at our notes. Composition.
Yes. I've spoken a bit about it.
Mhm.
To give it a rating, I think this is the part where it's going to be hard to compare different albums, the different compositions. I do think they've done something new. You know, they've really experimented a bit, and like we've said throughout the album, they pulled it off. They've done some things that are very difficult to do, and a lot of people don't even bother to attempt. For me, the only reason I wouldn't give it a 9 is because I just felt they could have gone more. And I'm not talking about speed now. Now I'm talking about how I felt that if you're going to have 5 interludes, they could have had 2 more. You know, and just explored it a little bit more.
That would have been way too much.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I thought the album should have been longer, like a double album with maybe like 3 other hip hop style songs included.
I definitely don't agree with that. I think this album it's a good length. I would maybe even say it's like 5 minutes too long.
How long is the length of
I think it's an hour and 16 minutes.
No, how long was speed? That's how long. That's how much could have been cut.
You'd have to cut another track with the one of the interludes is going. I'm sorry. For me, composition, yeah, it's done well. I like they brought in the West African
Yes.
music. I like for the most part, I think the orchestra has been really good. The rapping that came to tea is like I think I was a bit over it at that point. But yeah, I'd give this an 8 in terms of composition. Theme. I think they do a theme that's, I mean, you can't really judge a theme as good, but I think they do the theme of introversion, exploring that very well. So I would say it's also a 9
Yeah.
for me.
So for me, I think I've spoken quite a bit about it, and it's a solid 9. It's just not a 10 because of all the things I've said. I think it was just shy of that perfect narrative.
Yeah, for me, a 10 would have to be something that like I could really emotionally relate to.
Yeah. Finally, impact.
Impact.
Yes.
That is a word that needs to be followed by on. Impact on.
It's the impact. That's the thing. Like every album's gonna be different. You can't say that because
Impact on you?
no, it's got to be impact. It's just how impactful
on
do you think the
culture?
album is? Because if you can't relate to the message of an album, that doesn't mean it's a bad album. Doesn't mean it's not impactful. If someone's written instrumental work that has nothing to do with anything in the world, you can't say it's not impactful.
We should talk about promises.
Promises? Oh no.
For context, this is an album that I love and David hates.
I mean, I hated it the first few listens because it was just it's by far the most repetitive album I've listened to in my life.
Yeah, I think this. I don't know how do you phrase this? It has good impact.
Just say what you think. It doesn't have to be.
That's
in
why
a number.
I don't like this category.
I do.
Then you start. You go ahead.
I think that any album that's as introspective and this and as honest as this is going to affect a lot of people. For me, like a lot of the messages here just don't apply to me. And yet I can understand, like, yes, listening to this is going to have a big impact on a lot of people. And I think Sims also mixes that well with the cultural and environmental aspect of it. You know, she isn't just who she is because of internal things. She's also who she is because of her surroundings and where she's grown up, how she's grown up, her experiences along the way. I think that it's the kind of album where if I was growing up and I listened to this album, I think like, yeah, this is actually going to change how I see myself. It's going to really like changed the way I think. So for me, it is very impactful in the way, and I think it's impactful in the way that it tried to be. I wanted people to think like, you know, as a rapper, as an artist, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I see myself. This is how I've grown to see myself, and I think that it can have a big impact on the way people do the same thing. Do you understand a bit more about the category now?
Yeah, I do. I have nothing more to add. I agree with everything you said. Yeah, this album, definitely, it's not an album you're going to forget.
No.
It's not an album you'll forget. So then, overall feelings about this album. Where's it going on your internal rating, wherever that may be?
Look, it's gonna be one of those albums that I can always go back to. Like, generally when I listen to an album 20 times like this, I'm just gonna take a break for a while. This is the kind of album where if I forget about it, in terms of it's not like actively listening to it, then 5 or 6 years it comes on, I'm gonna be like, oh yes, let's do this. It's like a movie that you want to rewatch.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a very high bar. I don't do that for albums that have big issues with them, or just maybe have some good songs and then a bunch of others. This, to me, is right up there with the songs where, you know how I always go on about stuff and like repeat myself over and over again?
No, we haven't done that for an hour.
This is one of those albums where my friends are going to be annoyed at me for mentioning it too much over the years. That's like the category I'd put it in.
Well, now that we've talked about it, you can mention it again and again for years. I agree. I've loved this album since I first listened to it. That's why it was my first suggestion here. So yeah, for me, this is album, I don't know, 9 out of 10. Really, really good. So yeah.
And I hope we've at least been able to show everyone watching why it's such a good album. And we suggest that you all go listen to it for yourselves and enjoy it and add to your list forever. And then also, if you did enjoy this, you enjoyed our thoughts, please share the podcast. This is episode 1, starting from 0. So we'd love to see what other people think, especially with an album like this. It's not the kind of thing where 1 or 2 opinions are going to be enough. Everyone's going to have something to say. So please comment, share, let us know what you think, and we'd love to hear what you think about this album. Until the next time.
Till the next time. We are done with Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, but you have the next choice. What is that going to be?
The next choice...
Should I give you a drum roll? Oh, no, that would mess up the mics. I won't do a drum roll.
The next choice is The Smile. And I think the album's called The Smile.
Nope.
I will have to research it.
They only have one album. And, and that will be next time. Until then, Phon Voyage.